Ladies, gentlemen, Speakerhead Squad, what is going on? It is your boy Speakerhead, and welcome back to Display Masters, Episode 2. Today with me I have a very special guest, which is going to be TMReviews, which I'll talk about in just a little bit here. One quick thing I do want to mention before we get into this interview is that I do stutter a little bit through this interview. I don't know if I'll just tired or something, but I do stutter a lot, especially in this beginning part. So I apologize about that, but with that being said, let's get into the interview. Ladies, gentlemen, Speakerhead Squad, what is going on? It is your boy Speakerhead, and welcome back to another video, and welcome to Display Masters Episode 2. Today, we have with me a gentleman that's been doing reviews for a long time, and I have personally been watching for a while, and like I was talking to him before, absolutely loved his display. It's one of my personal favorite displays I've ever seen for Masterpiece Transformers. It's going to be TMReviews. Welcome.
Number 2. I didn't even realize that was episode 2.
I know. Hey, you're a special man. You are the second man to be on. So, but like I said, welcome. I appreciate you joining me.
No, thanks for having me on.
Just to get into questions right away, because I don't want to keep you. I know you probably got stuff to do, but
I got a review.
Yeah, exactly. I know you got stuff to do like that. But so the first question I got for you is, how long have you been collecting for, whether it be Transformers or anything else you've collected in the past? How long have you been a collector for?
So I'll say in my childhood, I wanted to collect. You know, my parents, I grew up cheap. I didn't grow up poor. My parents just didn't want to spend money on toys. So I did have like 1 or 2 Transformers, but most of them were gifts. And I really liked them, but you know, my cousins pretty much took them, or if I did get it, it was like a GoBot or some, you know, cheapy, you know, not a real Transformer.
Yeah.
So I always liked them. I just never really collected anything, mostly just because, you know, it wasn't something that my parents thought was, you know, made sense. You know, it was always about study, go to school, that kind of thing. But then once I graduated college, had my own money, then I could start buying stuff. So I started collecting Optimus Primes, believe it or not.
Ooh, nice.
Just Optimus Primes.
Yeah,
so I had
with
like
that.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people have Optimus collections, but I mean, from every genre. So like War for Cybertron,
gotcha.
And you know, G1. I had an MPO1 from Walmart. You know, that big diecast one. But it wasn't like actively, like there wasn't a lot out there. Meaning like there wasn't prolific Transformers everywhere. But then one day I went to Walmart and they had alternators. So alternators is what got me back into collecting, like real collecting. Because I only had like, you know, 5 or 6 Optimuses, and that was it. It was just one shelf, literally one row.
Yeah, it was your nice little collection, you know.
Right. So I had that one shelf, and then once I found alternators, I got hooked on that. So I found one at Walmart because it was a Walmart line, and then I was like, oh, there's Japanese ones and these other ones, and so then I collected the whole thing. You know, I just went 100% on those, and they were always like just shy of being Masterpiece. I don't know if you've collected or seen.
I haven't owned any, but I've seen a lot of them, and they have intrigued me. I really like just the real world designs. They just look so good.
Have you handled one?
I have, unfortunately not, no.
Okay, so they're really good quality. Like they feel really good.
Gotcha.
The car modes are obviously made like to perfection. You know, they wanted to make it look like the real licensed vehicle, which I love. You know, I'm into car. If I wasn't doing this, I'd probably be building or working on cars, or like modding or going to car shows, stuff like that.
I feel like that's something that a lot of people that are into Transformers are like, because it's like, if you're not into the big robot side, you're into the vehicle side of things, you know?
Yep. And I like robots, like other robots that are not Transformers, but mostly I'm into it because of the vehicle aspect. But now I've kind of opened my horizons a little bit more just because of the reviewing aspect. But anyway, so alternators got me back into it because I really love cars. I took a hiatus from like everything nerd wise. Like I wasn't really into anything really. I was all, you know, into girls and sports and other non, you know, toy related things.
Of course. And
it was alternators that got me back in. And then MPO1 showed up at Walmart. I had no clue that there was such a thing as a Masterpiece. I didn't know there was a thing.
Oh, well, that was the first one, so.
So in Walmart, they didn't call it MPO1. They called it the 25th anniversary Optimus Prime. So it was like,
gotcha.
You know, it had a special packaging. It looked like one and done. Like, here's this thing, you can buy it, and that's it. But then later I discovered through eBay pretty much that there was this whole thing of Japanese, you could import it from Takara, all the masterpiece.
Gotcha.
And I got a couple of those, the bigger size ones, the MP2 and MP4. And then Toys R Us had MP10, and my wife, of all people, she hunted it down.
Wow.
She found it in the store. She bought me two. She bought me one to keep and one to open.
Oh wow, good wife.
Yep, and that was it. That's all she wrote. I found MP10, and then I had to have them all after that. So I started collecting MPs, and that's kind of how this collection you see started.
Gotcha.
Was mainly because of MP10. And I got rid of all the other stuff that I had, alternators. I basically sold the whole thing, the whole lot.
Oh yeah.
Sold all those Optimuses from back in the day, and then I just went full MP and third party. Third party came later,
but once you started getting into the actual masterpiece, you got rid of all those other ones because you started having that vision for your kind of final display or
yes.
whatever you had. So
yeah, so I'm guessing this is either a question or a theme on your show, but one advice I give people is to choose up front, what is it that you're collecting? Because as soon as you start expanding beyond that, then your display starts to mess up, right? Because now you're trying to insert things where they don't go, or the sizes are varying, the scales are different, or you just have something that it just looks off, like it doesn't fit. And I know there's a lot of people out there who collect, for example, they'll mix retail and masterpiece. And I actually think it's okay to collect both lines, but when they're on one shelf, it looks funny. It just looks kind of strange, not only just because of the symmetry, but just because, one thing is a certain level and something is a different level. Yeah. You can tell, it just looks different. I saw something really cool though recently. I saw they were MP collector, but for every MP, they had the legends in front of it. So a tiny version.
Funny enough, that is what my dream would be if I could afford it. Right now I am currently just sticking with legend scale just because they're affordable, but
that's a good decision because it's affordable and you have space.
Exactly. And I was going to mention that is actually one of my questions towards the end, which is what's some good advice you can give, but we can dive into that a little bit towards the end once we get to that question. But I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of the main reasons, like you said, for me doing this. I want to give people some good advice and good ways that they can improve their displays. So let me see.
I'm not a master, by the way. I wouldn't consider myself a master displayer or whatever.
I don't think anyone does, but in my eyes, just from seeing other collections and how many of them have similar problems, I guess you could say, you've done it in a way that is very nice. And besides, like I mentioned before, that I love that they're on floating shelves. That's something that's not too common in displays.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is just due to risk of stuff falling, but
right.
But other than that, I personally absolutely love it. But besides that, I love the backgrounds you got. And then something else that I really like is that you also, not just for a couple, but for a few of your figures, you have them actually in their alt modes, which is once again something that, even though they're Transformers, you don't see too much of these days.
That was a funny decision I made early on because the first, I would say 10 to 15 Transformers that Takara decided to make all had mold mates or repaints. So that lends itself to displaying the robot mode and then the alt mode right in front of it. So half of my display is like that because there's two, there's a, smoke screen and blue streak, or, prowl and smoke screen and blue streak, or wheeljack and exhaust, or side swipe and red alert. They're all mold mates, that the point where I can see their alt mode and their robot mode. Because the alt mode is really the thing that drew me to Transformers in the first place. But I also, I have a love and a good memory of the characters. So I kind of want both. But I think most people, they display almost everything in robot mode.
Yeah.
It takes up space. That's the other problem.
And we kind of already talked about this a little bit, so this might be a short question, is what actually got you into collection, or what got you back into collecting, I should say, because we talked about how you got out of it for a bit, but what got you back into it, which I know you mentioned a bit, was alternators. So
yeah, alternators. that started it, but then it stopped because that line finished.
Oh yeah.
So I had collected most of them. I didn't have all of the Japanese vinyl techs. Those were kind of hard to come by. They were expensive too.
Oh yeah.
But I just kind of stopped because I had them all, and I don't know. The robot modes aren't very good. So that's what I was asking if you had seen them.
Yeah,
because
I've seen. I'll say this: I've seen the pictures of them. Like I said, the alt modes look good, but some of the robot modes are not too great. Yeah,
they're pretty wonky. So they got the heads right, but the rest of the body, they're all weird. So I was kind of like, well, this isn't the nostalgic thing I was looking for. It's close, it has the car part aspect, but it doesn't have the robot aspect. So I kind of just stopped there. But MP10 obviously is what got me back in, because that was what I was looking for. An adult style toy that recreates the cartoon, close enough, but also has the vehicle that that I like. So that was what got me hooked. And actually, at that point, I started getting rid of stuff that wasn't MP, little by little.
Yeah, I was gonna also say too, especially if you're like a car collector, something that I know some other people have done is they'll get like the Masterpiece robot mode, but then they'll go buy a die-cast version of that, which once again, as a car collector, I feel like that'd be something that we'd be appealing to you, because as nice as those alt modes look, you can also go probably buy a die-cast version for cheaper, and it'll look just as good, if not better, because that's the point of it,
Yeah, that's definitely an option. I actually just bought my first Hot Wheels Premium.
Oh, nice.
Because they had a wheel jack. They had the Lancia Stratos.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I picked it up, and they actually had the BMW Pro car or something, but it was a 2-pack. So I picked it up because of the wheel jack, and I was like, this is really cool. And I was like, do I really want to get into collecting die-cast cars?
I know, it's a whole other collection you gotta open up.
Have you ever seen a Hot Wheels display?
I've seen some of them, and they're wild.
Yeah, like people will get these little acrylic boxes, and then they're like stacks and stacks of them. So like you'll put it on a wall like that.
Yeah, it's
like,
crazy.
I can't start this. I just have the one, I have the one die-cast wheel jack, but I haven't really gone past that. And then that prompted me to look on eBay. And I started looking to see, hey, what else out there? You can find every Autobot car if you wanted to.
Oh, really?
There's a company called 𝐃𝐈𝐒𝐄. It's a Japanese company, of course. They make like super accurate, little die-cast cars with like rubber tires. Some of them have opening doors.
Oh, wow.
But they're not cheap. They're like, $40 to $150, depending on,
of course.
The rarity. And I found a Sideswipe, and I found, a few others. I was like, oh, this is a slippery slope. I'm definitely not going to go down this road.
That's what Transformers collecting is. You're just like, oh, I just want this character, and then I want this character. Well, now I need this season. Yeah.
But that's the thing. So, we're talking about displays, but having the discipline to not go down the road is pretty important if you want to have a good display. I have friends who, so T-Man is one of my friends.
Oh, yeah.
He has probably 90% of his collection is in boxes, baggies, or in bins. I'm the 100% the opposite. 90% of my collection is on this shelf behind me.
Same here.
There's only like a few in box. So, for example, like I have the trains, the Takara MPG trains.
Yeah.
Only because I'm waiting to complete that set.
Oh, of course.
And you do the review and put that up, and then I'm sending them off to G Tony, who he's the one that wants them in the first place.
There you go.
But like there's a few things like that where I'm just waiting to complete the set.
Yeah, just trying to finish up what you need them for, and then get them out of there.
Yeah, but pretty much everything I own is on display. And this is another key to like collecting and displaying. If you can't enjoy it and you can't display it, why do you have it? Like, why are you owning it? Because it's just taking up space and clutter. And if you're not gonna find a way to display it, or if it's forever going to stay in that box or that bin or that bag or whatever it is, then why do you have it? Why are you going to keep it there? So for me personally, It's all about the display. If I can't put it on display, then I usually get rid of it. Sometimes I do giveaways or whatever, but I'll sell it or whatever. That's the key is if I can't display it, then it's not worth owning.
Exactly. At that point, especially depending on how expensive some of these figures are, it's like you could have like thousands and thousands of dollars just sitting in boxes and stuff. It's like, even if you don't need the money, it's still better to have it than like just have it once again, just wasting away in a box, because who knows, some better figure might come out and then that price for it might just shoot down. It's like, you might as well get rid of it if it's not bringing you any joy, and unless you get joy having it get dusty in a box in a corner or something.
Right. Yeah, unless it's like something, you know, you're purposely collecting it in the box.
Yeah, that's the only difference. If you're doing mint in box or something like that, and you're like physically displaying the boxes, I think that's a little different.
Yes. So I would. That's my one exception is if you have a mint in box display on purpose. Okay, you know, then it makes sense. But if that box is tucked away in you know, your closet or your basement and no one can see it, why are you collecting it? So for me, it's like if I can't display it, or I'm not even going to show the box. I actually have a box. I don't know if you can see back there, but it's all the vehicle modes.
Oh yeah,
and they're all stacked up. And one of the boxes I had there was Fans Toys Outrider, not because you know it belongs there, but the guy who made the art, you know, I collaborated with him.
Oh, gotcha.
Because when Fans Toys put out that box, they took out all of their marketing on it, like all their branding. There was no Fans Toys logo. There was no inside. The instructions didn't say anything Fans Toys. The outer box didn't have the artwork, and they actually paid him for the artwork, but they never didn't use it. They didn't put it on the box.
Oh wow!
So he wanted to make a label for the box, which is it's a little silly because some people are like, "What are you gonna do with a box?" You know?
Yeah.
But because he had me write the bio, they left the bio out for that character.
Oh, gotcha.
Because they were trying to, you know, take off all the Fans Toys because Takara was about to make it.
Oh, gotcha.
I got to write that bio, and then he put that out along with his cover. So that box has kind of like a special meaning to me.
Yeah, that's some sentimental value. Like it was actually something you took part, even though it was an unfortunate how it turned out, but that's very cool that you got to take part in that.
Yeah. But for the most part, boxes are not like, I want to display the figure. I don't really care that much about the box.
Of course. I will say some art on boxes is very cool. Like personal favorite of mine that's in just a box, because I keep all my boxes for just like reasons. My favorite art is probably, or one of the favorite is the KFC reflector art. It's like really cool with the greens and purples and stuff. I just really like how it looks. But yeah, just like some of the artwork is very cool, but once again, I'm not paying $200 for the art. I'm paying $200 for the figure.
Yeah, and like I said, that's my one exception. If you are somehow displaying the mint in box thing on a shelf, or you know, I don't know how you would do it, but if you're doing it, okay, then I can understand keeping it in a box, but that's really the only reason. So that's a good way to kind of control yourself and, you know, get a focus for your collection is, hey, am I going to put this on the shelf? If you're not going to put it on the shelf, you're not going to be able to display it, maybe you shouldn't even buy it. But if you did buy it, then maybe you should get rid of it. Because what's the point in buying or owning something or collecting something if you're not going to be able to see it and enjoy it?
Do you collect, or did you collect anything besides Transformers in the past, or is it mainly just been Transformers for you?
No, I collected a lot of other stuff too along the way. And then inevitably what happens is I get somewhere, you know, close to complete, or, you know, some good amount of it. And then I'm like, nope, that's not what I want. So I collected the NECA, TMNT, pretty much, you know, whatever they had out at the time. I even got the street scene, which is actually a really nice display piece.
I've seen some of those NECA like TMNT figures, and they look really nice.
Have you seen the street scene?
Let's just say this. I'm going to be definitely pulling up pictures of it when I'm doing the video, but I guarantee when I look it up, I will recognize it. Okay.
Yeah, it's a diorama. So basically it's a 3-story building, and each level has like a place to display figures on it.
Okay.
So, and there's doors and windows, and you can put all of your NECA. It doesn't have to be NECA. You can put anything on it. But,
of course.
I had that, and I had started filling it with NECA, and it was pretty good. I mean, it was a good looking display. It didn't take a lot of energy and effort because it's already looks nice.
Yeah.
And then I got to the point where I was like, this takes up a lot of room in my display. and I needed the real estate for Transformers.
I
So I
feel
ended
that.
up, I sold all of it and went back to, uh, right now I just have a small shelf. Actually, I never showed in my videos. I probably should. I have just a very small shelf of turtles because that's like a really important property to me. It just, I have a really good memory of it.
Of course.
The first thing I learned to draw was, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, that's really cool.
So I have the SH Figuarts turtles, and then I have a NECA shredder, and I was like, that's all I need. I don't need, a big collection.
Yeah, just something that like says like shows your little love for this.
Yeah, exactly. I also have so I got the same thing happened with G.I. Joe. So I collected a bunch of classified. I got into the hype. Everybody was like all, I'm in this group of friends, Figure Action. It's a podcast actually every Thursday. Well, T-Man is part of that, and there's a few others from the Transformers community that are in that podcast every Thursday night. But they're all into G.I. Joe. So just by osmosis, I started getting into G.I. Joe. And, I had a complete collection. I mean, I had every single figure that had come out, every variant, everything. And I was buying them all. But what was I doing? I was putting them in a box and collecting them mint in box. I opened a couple of them, but, it was just sitting there. And eventually I was like, why am I doing that? And this is the exact thing I was just talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I collecting this thing to keep it in a box? I can't even enjoy it. Can't even see it. And those are really hard to display. G.I. Joes are really hard to display because they're only 6 inches tall.
Yeah.
You need a long space or a wide space with a short height. And on top of that, you need diorama because white space looks silly. I mean, it just doesn't look right having G.I. Joes in a white space. You need something in the background or some kind of terrain. And, that was another thing. It was like, even if I did put it on the shelf, it's not going to look very good. So I ended up getting rid of all of it again. And then I said, I'm just going to get vehicles. So I kind of committed to the vehicles thing. So I have Serpentor. If they put out the Arashikage bikes, from Snake Eyes or what's his name, Storm Shadow, I'll get those. Anything premium. So like now I'm just limiting myself to just premium stuff. So HasLab, what do you call it? They have a HasLab coming out.
Oh
yeah. The His Tank.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to get the His Tank and just limit my buying, my collecting and displaying to that, right? Just vehicles with some characters around it, right? I don't need the whole collection, everything to enjoy it. I just need a few pieces, and I want premium pieces. I don't want every piece. Just a few premium pieces so I can enjoy that property, G.I. Joe. And that's good enough for me.
Exactly. And actually,
I learned the hard way because I bought it all and sold it.
Oh yeah, I feel like that's what happens with most people. They start buying some stuff because they like it, and then all of a sudden they just it's not enjoyable for one reason or another. Either once again you start getting into the more expensive figures, or it's either you just fall out of the passion for the hobby or something like that. But everyone has made that mistake of being like, dang, I should have bought something else.
I collect these too, the Gundam Universe.
Oh, that's awesome.
They're cheap, so it's not as big of an investment. They're only $25.
Oh yeah, that's not bad at all.
They're kind of available everywhere, so they're easy to collect. They give me content for review when there's no Transformers coming. So it's not, those are easy. I just have them on little. Actually, this is a display I don't think I've showed anybody. I don't think anybody knows about this display here. Show you. So there's these little shelves.
First time viewing.
Yeah, you are the first time viewing. So these are like very short. They're like 2 or 3 inches deep.
Those are awesome.
And they have a little lip so things won't fall off of them. And then you just mount them at the height that, these guys are only like 6 or 7 inches tall. So it kind of works for that particular toy.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's not an expansive, display. Just a little thing right above my computer where I can kind of enjoy it.
Something else I actually did want to mention too, that you're talking about the G.I. Joes and the 6-inch display. Funny enough, you pretty much just explained every single person's problem with legend scale collecting. Yeah. So, because that's kind of been my issue, and I've luckily been getting pretty good at figuring stuff out. Like you're saying, I have little backgrounds. They can't be seen with these lights on, but they're like in my videos and stuff. But I have backgrounds and stuff for my legend scale. And I will say the nice part about legend scale Transformers, especially these days, is that they're coming out with a lot of the bigger figures, such as New Age and this company Pangu Toys coming out with Omega Supreme.
Right.
And then they just came out with Jetfire. So these larger figures are starting to
You know me
become
me
the background.
I bought all the Jetfires.
I know, they're so cool. I saw your Jetfire display too. I love it as well. I love Jetfire as well. I just can't afford it.
Yeah, I have a little obsession, a problem with Jetfires. I just keep buying them all. But that's the only one. Like, that's the one where I'm free. Like, I'm free to buy that character in whatever format it comes out in. But everything else, I limit myself.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's what I was talking about earlier. You have to have, what's your boundaries? Because as soon as you go past those boundaries, then your display starts to suffer from it. But that one shelf for the Jetfires, like, I've allowed myself, that one can be whatever, small, big, clear,
as long as it's Jetfire.
As long as it's Jetfire, like, that's my focus shelf. But for the most part, my display is not like that. It's all like a mix of characters kind of displayed together. But getting back to the 6-inch or like Legends, I've only seen 2 successful ways to display Legends. One is a giant diorama, basically, right? A huge background with like varying levels of height. So you have either you're using risers, better if you're using like rocks or fake, so that you can get different heights, things at different heights, or things suspended, like the seekers or whatever, suspended from the air, because then you get varying heights, and the fact that they're only 6 inches or 7 inches doesn't really matter anymore, because you're filling the space at various heights. That's one, is in a big diorama where they're like all different heights. The other one is the one I just told you, and I just did a video. It wasn't my display, it's somebody else's, where they had a square cube shelf with a Masterpiece figure, and then right in front of it a Legends figure. And that works because the space is filled with the MP. So it doesn't matter that there's negative space from the Legends, because right behind it is, the space is filled. But other than that, I have never seen it really work.
Yeah, it's a very difficult thing to do. I mean, but like I was saying, the nice part about these bigger figures coming out, such as the combiners and whatnot, is that you can kind of, especially if you don't have an actual background, you can kind of make them be the background,
Right.
So it's like, especially if you put like an Omega Supreme, a Superion.
You have the Pangu toys?
I unfortunately don't. I'm waiting for the New Age one. I'm super excited about.
I was gonna say you should wait for the New Age.
I will say the Pangu toys, it doesn't look bad considering it's only around like I think $85. So that it's not a bad deal. It's considering that like a regular New Age figure is like $50-$60. So considering you can get the full
New Age Omega is gonna be, I would say, at least $150. Probably more.
I'm assuming, because at least in U.S. retailers, I got mine in U.S. retailers. I get all of my Legend Scale Transformers. Shout out, but not sponsored. Sponsor me, though. Agabus. I buy all from them because I'm local to them, so I can.
Oh, nice. Handy's awesome. He's a good guy.
He's fantastic. I love both of them. I love their entire team. It's just great. But long story short, that's where I get them from, and I got.
Where is that?
They're in Wisconsin. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I bought my my Jetfire, my New Age Jetfire from them, and that was around 150. So I'm guessing it's probably gonna be like 200.
That's just too much. Like for a Legend scale. I'm buying Masterpiece Jetfires for 150. That's just too much.
I probably will still buy in person one of the New Age. I might buy 2 of the New Age Omega Supreme just for the fact of having one in like robot mode and vehicle. But I might.
Well, they're gonna make the blue one, so then you're gonna have that one to choose from, and they're probably gonna keep repainting it.
See, that's the nice part. I'm gonna buy the original, and then I'm gonna see what other varieties they have, because another one of theirs that I want to get once I get some more cash is going to be the black version, the Shattered Glass Jetfire. Actually, I really love that Jetfire mold, and that one I'm probably gonna get from like just straight from like China or whatever, somewhere not US based, so it'll be cheaper. But I would like to get another mold of that because I absolutely love it.
Speaking of that one, so my Shattered Glass isn't here right now because I sent it to New Supply. They make those little blast effects.
Oh yeah,
for figures. And actually, that's appropriate for this conversation, because blast effects and little like things like that can really change your display. It's just a little thing but it kind of makes it stand out. And it doesn't have to be a blaster effect. I just mean any little thing that's like a part of a scene, or it's part of that character's story or their lore. It just changes your display from just figures standing there, doing nothing. Having them actually, shoot or, play with whatever that thing is that's part of their story. It definitely changes your display. Any little thing like minifigures or blast effects, or like if you've got headmasters, or I don't know, just anything that can change up the display from just figures kind of side by sides together. It changes the dynamic, because now you've got varying heights, so your eye is drawn to different things. If you just have everybody in a line, kind of standing with a gun, it looks cool, but it looks much cooler when you make it dynamic like that, because you've got different heights and depths. So you can have smaller figures in front, and I think that's probably something that you saw on my display that you liked. I put minifigures in front, or like something in the front foreground with the figures in the background.
You can see it a little bit in the background of your display right now. Like I can see the like I was saying before, you got figures along the wall in robot mode, but then you have their alt mode in front of them, which looks great. So
I actually have Ultra Magnus sitting there because I just took him out of the box, the X-Transbots one.
Ooh, that one's cool.
And his shoulder is busted. So
I heard that's an issue.
I'm gonna do a fixed video on it. So
there you go.
Yeah, so little things like that. I mean, it doesn't really matter what it is, just something that varies the height of the display and the depth of the display. So you have something a little bit back and a little bit front that kind of helps, make it look more like a real scene instead of everybody standing, together.
When did you start caring about how your figures look in a display rather than just like buying figures and like putting them on a shelf? When did you start like actually caring about how they look on that shelf?
That's a good question. So Bobby's a big inspiration for my collection just in general. First and foremost, I watch other people's channels before I made my own channel, So, and Bobby's one of the ones I watched, and I think, I caught wind of his dioramas and kind of going beyond just a white background and a white shelf. That was kind of the first. I
was going to say, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, but I was going to say, I do think, besides yours, his is also one of my personal favorite displays, at least when it comes to Transformers and everything. It's one of my personal favorite displays I've seen.
And I'm going to be able to get to see it in person. So that's going to be cool.
That's awesome.
Oh, I remember. So now there's one of the guys in the community, his name is Jay Stabler. He's one of these people that will buy, like, if there's 5 modes, he'll buy 5 and have 1 in each mode. And he was the first guy that showed me these backgrounds. And they're just simple. They're just cardboard things, but it totally changes the look, because when you have just a white shelf with a white wall compared to, something that has depth. So that was probably kind of what inspired me. Oh yeah, this isn't good enough. It's just too boring, and it's not cohesive, and it just doesn't look like they're in a real place. So the more it looks like they're in a real place, even if it's not, a Transformers place, just a place, the better it is, I think, for display. Right? If it just looks like it's a shelf, then it's harder to imagine, in your imagination that, oh yeah, this is reliving the scene from your childhood or whatever.
I was actually going to mention too, for those who collect mainline, that's one of the good things about the Studio Series line, because they give you those backgrounds, so that way it's not just a figure. You can actually have these scenes from the movie or whatever. Right. Or I think it's just a good thing that they're doing with it. It's unfortunate that like Legacy and stuff doesn't do. I understand just for like budgeting, that'd be a lot of extra cardboard and junk, but yeah, I think at least for Studio Series, I think that's very nice to have that way. Once again, if you don't want to go, because I was just talking to someone, these backgrounds are not expensive. I made my own, and I know a lot of other people either buy them or make their own, and they're expensive to buy and whatnot. So
yes, you made your own out of what?
I actually I used my printer, and I ended up in my Photoshop program, I ended up cutting it like online backgrounds that were high quality into multiple chunks, and I printed them out on sticker paper, because they're just like, I forgot where it was just a Reddit post of just like a bunch of different backgrounds and stuff you could use. So I'm like, cool.
I just recently, it was TFW, but I discovered this big long list.
It might have been TFW. I don't remember exactly, but it was somewhere.
They had like high res backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
So I printed them onto self-adhesive poster paper.
Yeah, there you go.
I just tried them out like for the first time instead of so the problem is now my combiners, I don't have anything.
Oh yeah, that's a struggle to get backgrounds for because they're so big.
They're big, yeah. And my space is, I mean, you could see there's like another half a foot above the combiner that's empty space. So unless I have something in the background, it's gonna look empty. And I purposely left it that way because we're getting bigger and bigger combiners.
Yeah.
And you know, Unicron takes up the whole room. So I recently like downloaded one and printed it, and I sent it to a printer, and I did a adhesive so you can take it off. And I printed Cybertron, so they like Planet Cybertron.
Yeah.
And I put it behind Unicron, and it looks pretty good, but it's really hard to get the combiners looking right, because as soon as you hit an edge, like the corner of the wall or like where your print runs out, it looks funny.
Yeah, it's just
you've got like this cool background and then it ends, you know.
That's always going to be the struggle with like displaying figures. It's like it's unless you straight up make it like a full on 3D diorama thing, it's always going to look a little funky once that background cuts off. So
on my next video for display, you're going to see those backgrounds, and some of them are like 72 by 30. Like they're huge. So they're gonna be it's make or break, because if I'm printing this thing, you know, it costs a lot of money. These prints are very expensive.
Oh yeah.
So if it doesn't come out good, it's too bad. You know, I got to use it.
Now's the problem with mine, because since I was doing it myself, if I messed it up, just a little background on how I made mine, I think I went through 2 or 3 full like black and color like cartridges just to like print, especially the Decepticon ones, because they're like that purple, so it just uses all the colors. So it's just like I went through so much, and that was the thing. If I messed up, and I will say I did mess up one panel of it, so it was like if you mess it up yourself, it's gonna be even more expensive than if you would have just bought it. So that's another thing. At least a tip, if you're gonna try and make your own, make sure you 100% got it the exact way you want. Test it on regular paper, test something
Smaller.
Yeah, exactly. Do something to not waste your money, because ink is not cheap.
Yeah, that a 32 by 32 that I made was, I think, $85. So it's not cheap, and you got to get it right, because once it's printed, it's printed. You know, they're not gonna. But yeah, that's my next thing for my display, is printing or getting some kind of background for the combiners, because that's the most ugliest part of my whole display is the combiners.
Yeah, and like I was saying though, it's very difficult unless you do spend that time and money on that display. It's so hard to actually make them not look out of place, just because once again they're so big.
Yeah.
But let's move on to the next question here. What is your personal favorite thing you have done to your displays? Like, is there any one detail you have done where you're just like, you know, that just really brought everything together?
So the extreme sets definitely was a game changer for my display. I just did it for like one set of shelves. And then once I put it in place and saw what it looked like, because they're somewhat 3D, you know, they have different depths. And once I saw it, I was like, yeah, this is it. Like, and then I ended up doing it for all the shelves. So I would say that's probably the one biggest change I made, is the backgrounds, the extreme sets. But you don't need to, you know, you don't have to do it that way. You can make your own, or you can make a diorama. You can use styrene, you know, and cut it yourself. There's lots of ways to do it, but you know, I just don't have the time to put that together. So instead, I'm paying somebody else, you know, to do it for me. But that's probably the biggest difference. The only other thing I would say is lighting. Lighting is a huge project anytime I have to do it. So I have one ecosystem for it, because I don't want to have to keep, you know, building a new wiring for it. I bought it on Amazon. I mean, it doesn't really matter. You know, you can buy whatever system you want, but get one ecosystem and buy enough so that if you expand your shelving, you don't have to go back, because sometimes they go out of business.
That's true. That's a problem that I've seen actually with The first guest of Display Masters, Stefan, lovely gentleman, his issue is that he's trying to get more details for his display, but they IKEA changed them up, and apparently they're like worse quality. So now he's gonna have to look for these discontinued shelves to or else it's gonna look different from the rest of them.
Right. So that's one issue is if you're trying to make it consistent. And that's actually a reason I went with. So these are like super duper cheap. So I'm building, obviously putting these in myself.
Yeah.
They're from Ace. They're from Ace Hardware. So it's a white shelving. It's painted. And then I just buy the brackets myself, and I mount them myself. But that's gonna be there. Like that's not going anywhere. It's just a wood piece, that's painted, and then the brackets are just a piece of metal. They're never gonna not have that.
Yeah, that's
if you get furniture, you get furniture, you get like Norfly system from IKEA, or you get a specific kind of furniture. The chance that it's always going to be there is kind of hard. So for the lighting, I went and bought like a bunch, but a lot. Not because it's like the most amazing lighting, but just because I didn't want to have to change.
Yeah, you didn't want to have to like go and redo all of the lighting later. That's just a pain, because just the thought of it is just like, I don't want to do it.
Right. So the one I have is extendable.
Gotcha.
So the way I've set it up is I just keep expanding along this wall. I've reached the limit now. I don't have any space left. But I've reached the end of that way and this way. So as I was building, so the lighting system I got, you can just plug it in.
And it all linked together.
So now I'm glad I went with this, because it would have been a huge pain had I not got an extendable system, because I had to just take it out, put in new wiring, find a place to plug it in, right? Because they're all plugging into one spot. But if I had to, like, let's say I had to plug it in over here, now I had to find an outlet. So thinking ahead of, hey, how much space and lighting am I going to need? And then, preparing for that, rather than waiting until you buy that new shelf or buy that new thing, because then it might be too hard to go back and change it all. If you're using shelving though, like varying shelving, like you've got Billy's and DTOFs and something else, then it's probably okay, because you can vary it, and the variation looks nice. But for me, I'm using all one thing.
Yeah.
I have a one shelving unit here that's kind of cool. But other than that, it's all the same white shelving. And one of the things I hate is I hate the bottom two shelves of any shelf system.
As you can tell by mine, that's why they're completely empty. I'm just like, I don't want to use them.
That's my pet peeve, is like I hate having to bend down and look, or having to like go down there to get a figure or like pose a figure. I just hate the bottom two shelves. So
they're just a
that's
waste.
why I did it this way from the beginning. Is I never wanted to put anything down there. So no matter what it was a Billy or a DTOF or anything, that problem was always there. Now I think Bobby or somebody was talking about, you raise it up. Now it's not, on the bottom, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a way to work around it. But still, anything below like thigh height, right? Anything below that, it's too low. If it's below your knees, you're not going to really be able to see it. You're not going to really be able to enjoy it. And then you're certainly probably not going to reach down there and mess with stuff. You're going to reach for stuff that's at, eye height or higher. So that's one reason. But the problem with that is I have far less shelving, because think about it, like there's 2 rows of things.
Yeah, it makes it very limited, because you're trying to keep it to that like eye level almost. So.
Right. And so that was a decision I made early on, but I'm going to stick with it now, because that's the way I went.
Yeah.
But for me, that was really important.
It looks great, and I was gonna say that is another thing that I do like about yours, which I live in, just like, this is my first apartment, so I'm just like, I'm just working with what I got with my $30 Target shelves. But once I do get a proper place, I do want to do something similar to what you got, where it's all up high, because like I was pointing out already, I already have it where I'm trying to just get rid of this lower space. So if I can like get a permanent place where I can just have some shelves that are like up here, like, so they're not just like down low, because like you were saying, no one wants to squat down and look at a figure. No matter how cool the figure is, you don't want to squat down and break your back to go look at it. So
another thing, I mean, this is a subtle thing, but I can tell when people have kids and don't have kids. because when I see like expensive figures down low, that's actually another reason why I have it this height. Because when my daughter was growing up, I didn't want her to just unintentionally. Now she's actually really good. She's never ever taken a toy off the shelf. And if
That's
she
awesome.
did, she was like first asked me if she could. But she's never taken a toy off the shelf. She never broken anything. She never grabbed it. But because it was above, child height, baby height, there was no chance of even, something coming off. And then when she got old enough to actually talk, then, there was no problem anymore, right? Because we could communicate. But I could always tell when, there's a household that doesn't have kids, because they'll have like a row of Masterpiece figures on the floor or like on a low shelf.
Exactly. But like we were saying, though, I mean, use whatever shelf space you got. If you got to use it, go ahead and use your lower shelf space. But everyone knows it's like that's the worst shelf spot on any shelf. Yeah. Just the low spots. But that is funny that you mentioned that, because that's another reason why I actually got mine raised. I have a fur ball that lives on my couch that's currently sleeping over there.
Oh, does he knock stuff over?
Oh yeah, he's been recently learning to pee on my shelves, which has been a problem. Anything black, I see you're being stop peeing on my shelves.
I have a cat too, but she doesn't mess with anything. Amazingly,
it's funny. He's been a good boy for the longest time, but just out of nowhere, he just got the instinct to just start peeing on black things.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just like, oh great. So actually, funny enough, I have to have these white border things to block off my shelf, so that way he doesn't piss on them. So he won't pee on the white, but he'll pee on the black.
That's funny.
So yeah, but yeah, that is funny that you mentioned that, because it's like not just like a kid thing, it can be a pet thing for reasons for having to keep it elevated. But that's another reason why I want to elevate my shelves in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because one, you have to install it. You can't just put the furniture there. You have to take the time to actually, level it, put the screws in. And I have, the maximum weight anchor that I can get, because I never want to take the shelf out. I don't want it to fall. I don't want it to get loose.
Yeah.
I'm putting 10-pound combiners on there. I don't want it to ever even come close to falling. So
yeah, you don't want that. Like we were talking about before with price, these aren't cheap figures. Like if that's a fall, that's a very, very expensive fall.
Right. So I spent a lot of money on the anchoring and on the installation. And if I don't get it right, then I'll redo it, because it's not worth, putting in a crappy shelf. It's gotta be solid. But for people that are using shelving units, one thing I was going to recommend is if you don't like detofs. So the problem with detofs is the width, right? It's only so much width.
Yeah.
And I found this new piece of furniture. It's got glass, but it's not all glass. So it's like it's like an S-shaped shelf. But then on each edge is a piece of glass.
Interesting.
So you get that glass look, but it's not all glass, and it's very wide and deep. So you can display more figures on it. You don't get this 2 feet of a display and then the next shelf.
Yeah, that's the main problem with detofs. It's like they got so much height, but they don't have any width.
Right. So these have width, and they're varying width. So it's I can't really show you, but there's like a 15-inch height shelf, and then right below it is like a 10 or 9-inch shelf.
Gotcha.
And then below that is a 15. So it's a varying height.
Okay.
So just as an example, I have G.I. Joe and Turtles on the short one. And then I have an Optimus Prime and Star Saber shelf on the big ones. Right? So it always fills the space. And it's nice because the detof, it's pretty standard. It's like this is the height of the thing. I guess you can get custom shelving height things, but then you always have the problem with the lower shelf. What are you gonna do? So the reason I bought this thing is one of my friends, Dr. Diecast, he goes by. I went to his house and I saw his display, and what he does with the bottom shelves is he puts alt modes on there.
Oh, okay.
Because alt modes are like long and thin. So if they're on the bottom, you can still see them.
True.
But when you display a robot, it's standing up. Usually it's somewhere between 9 to 12 inches. So you can't see the face. You can't see the head. Sometimes you can't even see the shoulders. But with the alt mode, it's flat and long. So when it's on the bottom shelf, you can still see it all. So I thought that's a really smart way to use the bottom shelf, is just put a bunch of planes like jets on there, or put a bunch of cars or a couple trucks, like semi trucks, because it uses up the space and you can see it.
Yeah, and I'd say that's probably one of the best ways to do the alt mode, because if you have the alt modes at eye level, unless you have them like tilted or something, you really don't see much of it. You see the headlights or whatever just in front of it. So having that lower like view of it is one of the few times where having that lower shelf is nice, because you can actually see the full details. Like for the Lamborghinis, you can see the full like roof and all the way the spoiler and back and everything. You can see like Optimus Prime's full truck bed and everything. It all looks much better in that lower view compared to, once again, those robots that are standing up where they need that height and you want to be able to see the full robot.
Right. So I'm actually planning to do that with this bottom shelf, is move, because my display is basically full. That's why there's no room left. So I've got to move some things out of there. So the alt modes, which, I've set up this thing where it's like the robot mode and the alt mode, I'm going to have to break it up because it's just too many. But that bottom shelf, that's another good strategy, is put alt modes there that are long and not very high, so you can actually see them, especially like semi trucks or like anything that's bigger or longer, but not tall.
So to move things along here, if you could change one thing about your current display, what would that be?
I'd probably get more than one kind of furniture. I have almost 100% these white shelves, and initially I was like, I just wanted to be consistent and look the same. But now I think it actually could help, break it up, or have like something in the middle. So I'm a symmetry guy. I want it to be symmetrical. So if you look at my displays, you'll see that, everything is like that. Everything is done in symmetry. So I'll have like Optimus in the middle, and then like people along the side in varying, decreasing heights.
Yeah, like the pyramid scheme. Almost.
Yeah, and then the shelves above it, same thing. I'll have Optimus, and then right above him, the next shelf up by season 2, or movie shelf, will have Rodimus Prime, and then the bots around him. And then the one above that has, Headmasters. So I'm all about symmetry, but I think having different pieces of furniture early on would have been a good idea, because now it's kind of too late. Like, they're bolted into the wall.
Yeah.
I can't really change it easily. It's too much effort. And all the wiring that's behind there for the lighting, it's too much effort now to change it. So if I had to change something, I'd do something like that. I'd put a shelf kind of in the middle to break it up, or just change the look.
That's what I've heard a lot of people say that have like very uniform shelves. They look fantastic, but every single one of them I've heard be like, if I just put like this one thing in here to just kind of split things up, just change it up just a little bit. That's the one thing I've heard, because like I said, all these displays, like I said with yours, it looks fantastic. It's very unique to have it all kind of be one kind of connected display, compared to, as you see with me and many other collectors, it's just separate shelves that it looks all right, but it splits things up a little too much. So it's funny because you have
it's long. I mean, so this display it's almost 40 feet. That's why I would change it, because I need something with vertical height, right? Everything is horizontal. So something in the middle to break up that really long horizontal and make it a little bit vertical is what I would change. But right now it's too late. Like, I just don't want to redo the wiring and the shelves, and it's just too daunting of an idea. And then to get the backgrounds, different backgrounds again. But I would definitely change that. So I did get a piece of furniture here, the one I was telling you about, the varying height thing. If I was going to do this over, I'd probably get another one of those and put that somewhere in the middle, just for symmetry purposes. But I think that would help.
At least you're at the point where it's only one minor thing that you want to change, compared to me, where I'm like, I'm gonna have to rehaul pretty much everything. And then once again, since this is only my first apartment and I can't really drill into my walls and stuff without them being mad at me, once I do get my place, or my own place that's like a permanent place I'm staying, that's when I'll finally be doing all my major display stuff. But right now I'm just fiddling with stuff, seeing what works, what doesn't. But like I said, at least it's only one little thing that it's like, it would make it look better, but it's not like your display looks bad with that, like how it is right now. So
there was a few times, so I actually did redo these shelves like at least once, actually maybe even twice, because I mounted them at the wrong height. So I started here and down at the other end, and they eventually met. and they weren't at the same height. So then I was like, ah. So I had to move some stuff to fix that because they weren't like aligned. Now thinking about like redoing the whole thing, I can't even imagine. Like I would probably just not have a display.
Yeah, at that point, it's just like you've already put so much time and effort into it. Just restarting is like not worth it.
Yeah. It's another thing. We didn't talk about this, but I don't like the reflection of glass on my display on the front. I'm okay with it on the sides, or even on the back, like a mirror type thing.
Oh yeah.
But on the front, I feel like it stops you from seeing what you want to see, especially if you have lighting, because the lighting's reflecting off of things. It makes it harder. And if you're filming, and I'm filming all the time, it makes it hard to film. And I asked people, why do you put it behind glass, whether it's a detail for some other piece of furniture? And they said for dust. It helps protect from
That's
dust.
What I hear a lot.
And I've gotten into some magical place where this wall in my house doesn't collect dust.
Oh wow,
I don't know why. I don't know. I'm in a basement, so I don't know why it doesn't collect.
That probably helps a little bit, just because it's like you're not like out in the like elements, seasonal pollen, whatever junk. There's just not as much activity happening down there, so there's not as much dust buildup.
Maybe that's it, but other people tell me. So they ask me, like, what do you do for dusting? And I'm like, I don't dust my figures. Like, what do you mean? It's like, well, they don't get dusty. They're like, well, is it behind glass? I'm like, no. And then they're saying, well, how can you not be dusting it? And I said, I don't know. it doesn't. So I can understand why people put it behind glass because, it's less dusting work for you. But for me, I just somehow there's no, I get very little dust in that area. But that's another thing to consider. If you are in a dusty area or you just have, dust in your house accumulates, you might want to set up a display that prevents that.
Yeah, as sucky as glass is, it might, if you have too much dust and you're just like good example, like that might be what I have to do. I get a lot of dust buildup to where it's like I don't want to dust every week. So it's like, yeah, if it's something like that, it might be a good idea to get glass. But if it's something like your position where you don't need to really dust at all, like why waste your time?
Yeah, I just got lucky. I'm not sure what it is, if it's the area of the house or maybe where I live in New York, or I don't know, but somehow there's just very little dust in that area.
What's one piece of advice you can give for people when it comes to displaying their overall collections?
Yeah, I kind of did get it out already, but I'll kind of reiterate it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Displaying, the step that comes before that is collecting, and the step that comes before that is buying, purchasing. What is it that interests you the most? What's the thing that brings you the most happiness? And not, hey, what's the thing that other people are buying, or what's that thing that I saw that, it'd be cool to see it. What's the thing that you want to display? And limit your purchasing to that. And I know that's hard because it's hard for people to say, well, I'm gonna limit my purchasing and maybe not see this new kind of toy or this new kind of line, or maybe even it's a new show or something like that. If you can decide up front, and I think that's why I have the display that I have, because I made a decision. I'm only going to do Transformers. I think I said season 1 through 2, but then I said, no, that's silly because that's too limiting. So I said season 1 through 4, and I stuck with it. I haven't, some of my friends are like, well, why don't you collect Master Force or this thing or that other thing? Like, no, because that's not in the parameters of what I'm collecting. So if you can limit your purchasing, then you can limit your collecting, then you can limit your display to what makes sense, right? But as soon as you kind of open the floodgates, then it's hard to display, and then it becomes kind of a nightmare. And I've seen people get to the point where they have so much stuff and they're trying to figure out how to display it, and then like they quit because it's so frustrating that they're like, yeah, I just don't want any of it anymore. I'm gonna get rid of it. So if you can set your mission up front with the buying, or if you're already into it, let's say you're already so far along, right, and you have a bunch of stuff, pick what you're going to get rid of, which things don't actually bring you joy and that you can't fit in your display, or you just can't figure out how to display, and they're not making you happy anyway. And then focus on the things that you do want and that you do want to display, and just pick, choose a few things, and that will make your display happier. That's my advice.
That was beautiful. I absolutely love that advice, and I 100% agree on it. Just make that choice early on and what you want to collect, because as I will always tell this story fast, I was buying all 3 Masterpiece, Mainline, and Legend Scale, and that was a lot of money, and I started running out of ideas for space. And yeah, so that's why I'm down to Legend Scale, because it's saves me money, it saves me space, it does everything I need to do. They're small and I can fiddle with them, and it doesn't take me an hour to transform it. So it's all the good stuff. But yeah, I like I said,
if I was going back though, I probably might do that. Like if I could tell the future that, hey, that's the direction, we're gonna get all these legends, every character, every iteration, and they were gonna be like masterpieces but smaller, I might even consider doing legends, because it just takes up so much less room and so much less money. And if you can get a good diorama display, that could look really banging. It would look really good.
TMReviews, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Display Masters. Now I like to shout everyone out and pretty much tell people where to find you at. So where can people find you at, and just like what projects do you got coming up?
I have my YouTube channel, obviously, is where most people find me. I've been putting out a lot of videos, but Facebook is kind of a growing thing for me. I'm spending a lot more time blogging. So like putting out news or, new figures that are coming out. I'm an Instagram baby, and I know your whole generation is totally into Instagram. I'm just learning how to, do the gram. And I'm not great at it. So Instagram is another one where, I'm putting more content. I just got the advice recently that I should take the shorts that I'm making anyways and putting on YouTube and just upload them to Instagram. So you might see some of that on Instagram if you like that kind of thing. Thursday nights at 9:00, I'm on the Figure Action podcast. During the pandemic, I was doing a whole bunch of live streaming every Wednesday night. So it started on Saturday, Saturday Night Live, and then it moved to Wednesday. And then now I've kind of, dropped back a little bit. But every week I'm on the Figure Action podcast, and we talk about not just Transformers. They actually start the show with Transformers, but then they continue on with all sorts of action figures. So if you care about other kinds of genres or, properties, then they talk about all that. TFCon is the only other kind of big thing I do every year. So we're going to Toronto in July. I think it's June or July is the TFCon Toronto.
Gotcha.
And that's kind of where, the big news, drops. That's where we, hear the latest reveals.
Oh, yeah, of course. That's when all the cool stuff happens.
Yeah. I think that's it. That's pretty much the big stuff for me.
Once again, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Display Masters. And like I said, I won't hold you up, but thank you everyone else for watching. I appreciate you checking out the video. Make sure to go check out TMReviews stuff. He does amazing content. I love checking out his stuff. Funny enough, I checked out your previous display setup literally the day before you put out your new video of it. So I thought that when I was originally getting to contact you, I found that so funny. I'm just like, dang it, now I gotta watch the new one and see what he's done.
Yeah, every 6 months I try to do that. But thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate, especially when it's a younger generation. I'm almost 20 years older than you. No, I think I am 20 years older than you. So the fact that our love of this show or these figures can span that far is really cool. So, you bringing in new people, new audience and new people from your generation into this is awesome. So I love that.
Thank you. I'm just happy that I get to do it, because it's something that I get to, and not saying this in a disrespectful way, I get to talk to people of a different generation who have had different experiences. So it's like, let's just say this, I would not normally be talking to just like 40-year-olds and whatnot, but it's just like, because of this hobby, I've talked to a lot of other people and met some just fantastic people. Like met Deluxe, met 𝐃𝐈𝐒𝐏𝐋𝐀𝐾, met a bunch of guys through this. It's just been fantastic meeting so many different people who have had different experiences, but at the same time all still love this thing that we all buy way too much of.
Absolutely.
But like I said, thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I will catch all y'all in the next one. Take care, everybody.